People love him already. He's got the Rhode Island twang.
The long pass to Moore and a pin block from Martin.
Tune in to Cam's Corner.
He's going to make it here.
Draws the foul for another Rhode Island and one.
He's got his own podcast.
It's good off the backboard and in. On a break.
And we are back, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Cam's Corner. Today, joining me, a 6'3", 305-pound offensive lineman for Villanova University from Hope, Rhode Island, Jake Picard. Jake, thank you for joining me. And again, your first podcast appearance. How are we feeling?
We're feeling good.
Good, man. I'm happy to have you. Happy to finally get you down and, talk football, talk where it all started. So, growing up in Hope, Rhode Island, what were sports like for you at an early age? What sports did you start playing, and when did you start getting into football?
I feel like I've always played football. I think like the first sport I remember ever playing, I think I was 5 when I started. I was back in the Tri-Town Titans. I was just flag football, and then to Pee Wee. And then my little brother no longer had a team for the Titans, so we made the switch to Johnston. And I think I was there for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and right. So middle school kind of came around because of just kind of like the situations that your brothers were in, or was it kind of deciding like where you wanted to play? Like what would make you kind of a better player overall, would situate you better than back at Hope?
I mean, I feel like we always kind of talked about like Situate football being D3,
right?
And so like just getting to like a spot that would put you in the best position and get the most exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely made that switch. Partially because my little brother needed a team to play on because they didn't have enough kids. And then I also went to school in Johnston, so it was an easy switch to make. And then from Johnston, my older brother went to Hendricken. So from there, it was like my parents were just like, well, that's where you're going to. So it's always been like kind of just like set up for me. But I feel like my parents and just my whole family kind of put me in like the best position for me without me even really knowing.
So in middle school, you went to like a private school in Johnston, or was it? Because I know you didn't come to Ferry, but what was? Where'd you go to school?
I went to St. Rocco's.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because my mom was like big on getting a Catholic school education. So like I went there since I think pre-K. So I was there for like 10 years from pre-K through 8th grade. Right,
and then youth. Obviously, you played with the Panthers in the Johnston Youth League. Played basketball with a few of my guys for AAU and travel and all that.
Yeah.
Was there ever like a decision to like kind of pursue basketball too, or was it always just kind of locked in on football?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I always enjoyed playing basketball. I played like AAU with you guys, and I think once I got to high school, I played freshman basketball for Hendricken, and I dropped so much weight, and I looked like a skinny little basketball player, and my parents were like, I don't know if that's really good for you for football. Being 180, 6'3", trying to play O-line. So then from there, I was like, I had to make a decision. And for me, it was kind of just a no-brainer. Like basketball was always just there it was just a sport to have fun.
Yeah. You were only 180 freshman year?
Yeah, I dropped a lot. It was not.
Wow.
Yeah, I was definitely skinny back then.
Yeah.
I put the weight back on. Good weight though.
Yeah, no, for sure. And obviously, like with Hendricken, like you gotta adjust quickly because there's freshman level, there's junior varsity, and then there's varsity. Usually, like public schools, there's only junior varsity and varsity to kind of work in. So you kind of had like a little short window in that 4-year span. But the youth days come to an end. You land on Hendricken. What was kind of like the difference maker from that youth? Because a lot of the kids weren't really like your size at that age. Now coming to Hendricken, you got to kind of, like you said, put on that weight. So what was that like transition process like at like an early age?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like from freshman year to sophomore year was like a big change. I had to like figure out how to start lifting effectively. Because I feel like I've always been in the weight room, but I haven't been like putting on that much muscle and getting that much stronger. So just making that jump from freshman to sophomore year, because I didn't want to play junior varsity. I wanted to, everyone wants to be on varsity. So it was just like finding like what was going to help me with the protein shakes, hitting the weight room hard. And then that ultimately helped me get to where I was on varsity. And then I think from my junior year, I attended the San Antonio the Combine in Texas, and from that understanding, it just like made me think about like how I was doing well in Rhode Island, but not compared to like other kids from all across the country. I was still small. So I think the biggest thing from that point on was I started working with Kevin. I know Tom and Nick worked with Kevin for footwork. And then he introduced me to Joe from Next Level. And then from that point, I went from like 260 and now 305. And I work out every time I go back home. So I think that's been like the biggest thing, just like the footwork and then hitting the weight room with Joe. Because like I feel like that's what really took me from playing at like the varsity level of high school to getting ready for the college like recruiting process.
Right. And obviously high school is like, it's a different animal coming from, like we said, like youth now to like the D1 level at Rhode Island. But then when you said you went to San Antonio, then that's like a completely different breed of guys that are, obviously bigger than you. And like you said, you got to work your way up and things like that. But so you saw more of a difference when you went away out of the state rather than just from middle school to high school.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely saw like in Rhode Island, I feel like we always hired like those, like a handful of guys who were making it to the next level, but not every team had them. Not every player on the team was one. So it was just like when I really went out and I saw everyone, because I guess when you kind of like you get like a new perspective, like everyone's like I just remember like watching some of the guys pass that, and I'm like, wow, like they look great doing it. And like looking back even to my Hendricken and like younger days, like we didn't really like pass the ball like that. It was always like a quick little pass. Like my pass pro like wasn't like that important. And then coming to all these camps, I was just seeing how like these guys have been like pass setting for like looks like they've been pass setting like that since Pee Wee football.
Yeah.
So it was just like it was eye opening because I was like, well, I gotta make up for that.
Yeah, and like you said too earlier with like Hendricken, you wanted to play varsity like right out of the gate. So when did you start seeing like serious playing time and like your role start to like really be like a contributing factor for like the Hawks over your 4-year tenure there?
Yeah, I mean my first day of sophomore year, we started the summer workouts, and we just like kind of hit it from there. And I was like after freshman football, I remember Coach P like coming in like, oh, like if you want to play varsity, you gotta get your weight up. You're looking a little skinny. So like just going from like that, like I had a mindset like I had to get ready, and then like I worked hard. We went to 5 a.m. workouts whenever I could, and then I think my junior year is when I kind of started to like take everything under my belt because sophomore year I was playing guard, but I was going against guys that were graduating high school, and me, I was still a young kid, and I was still just kind of like get the feel of things, like the ropes. Like I knew how to block, I knew how to play football, but just like getting like developing like that football IQ, I think definitely started junior year into senior year. I feel like that kind of like made like the difference where I kind of like took up the mantle myself and was like, oh, now I have to teach the younger guys like what the program's all about.
Yeah, and on Villanova's website, that's like at the top of like your player profile is that you're a very high Q'd football player. So growing up like in that Hendricken system, you mentioned a few guys, but who were some coaches and some trainers during like the off season as well that helped you really like progress and just get better like year after year?
Yeah, there's definitely from like an O-line perspective, there's Bucci and Sackett who helped me. When it was Coach P, Coach Croft. There was like all the coaching staff really like put in an effort. I know Coach P definitely helped me get on the radar. Like Coach Hadlin did the same thing. Like we would use their office because what really helped me, I think, was Xavier Truss was ahead of me. So like all these big schools, like he went to the same camps I went to, and he was like, "Oh, like you should go to these camps," because I went to them, and I was like, "All right, let's do it." And he got a lot of exposure. And whenever coaches would come in to see him, they'd send me like Coach P would like send me a text, and the office would call me down, and they would allow me to like introduce myself to the coaches, who weren't really there to see me, but it was still it was a great like chance that like they provided me to like get my name out there. And that's where I actually I met Coach Devine, the Villanova coach, who came down. I think I was junior year. I met him, and then he remembered me from a camp. Like I saw him again at Rutgers, and he remembered coming to see me at Hendricken.
Yeah, those connections go a long way, and of course, someone like Xavier and another name that I think of is Jason Onye, who's at Notre Dame. Like those teammates that you've been playing with over those years. Obviously they had different paths and they had a lot of opportunities come their way, but like you said, you were able to be a part of those opportunities as well. Open more doors for you down the line, like you said, with the Villanova coach and things like that. I was gonna say, like, what was it like, kind of like playing with guys like of that caliber, like Xavier and Jason, and more guys that are now at the D1 level as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's great to see where everyone started from, because we all started at like freshman football, just like not used to like our size, and then like as like we progressed, like physically, we kind of like figured out like this is like what we have to do, that we can keep going, and just like seeing how like Jason and X and even myself, like how far we've come since our first days of varsity. It's always like funny to like see, like, because I just remember like us getting down in our stances and we're like all awkward, and it looks like not like looks kind of funny, and then like now, and it's like Georgia won 2 championships, Jason's at Notre Dame, I'm at Villanova, and it's like kind of just funny like looking back on like how things were.
Yeah, and again, like winning as many championships as you guys did, a lot of memories go into that, a lot of hard work and things like that. But I like to ask a lot of, because I've talked to a lot of like you guys from Hendricken, like you, Angel, of course, Nick and Tom, and haven't got a chance to talk to Jason or X yet, but definitely trying to do that down the line. But what was your like when you think about it, high school football, your favorite high school football memory?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm trying to think. I think which
So like there's a ton, because again, you guys won so many championships
yeah,
there, and it's such a short amount of time. But
I
if you could
think
think of one.
I think junior year was probably the best championship win, because my sophomore year we lost. It was the end of like the
Right.
streak, they called it. I think it was a 7-year streak, and
Mhm.
like being on the team that like everyone like laying down like all the alumni and all them, because like everyone is like was invested in that, and then like looking back on being the team that like lost it, it was like, well, now like how are we gonna get back? Like, how are we gonna get it back? So I think junior year we just came back, like my junior year, and we just came back, and it was just like I think that was like the best, because everyone just played together. I think X was still on the team. That was because like going from not winning at just 1 point to then crushing them the second time following year is always it was I think that was the best.
Yeah.
And then senior year, I think we just kind of beat up everybody. It was a good game, a lot of great memories. But I think junior year was the best.
And your senior year, you got to play with your brother too, right?
I did. I had to help him out a little bit, because like
Yeah.
like the young guys, like everyone's like you got to know like what you got to do, how you got to act, because it's different from like pee wee football
Mhm.
to the high school to the college level. Like you have to act like composed yourself. When someone yells at you, you can't yell back. You got to be like, "It's coach." So just like from that perspective, just helping him, taking him under my wing, and helping him out when I can.
Is he playing at the college level now?
Yeah, he is a walk on at the University of New Haven. So
Wow.
I don't think they started camp yet. They're still on their summer training like we are now.
What position does he play?
He's a wide receiver. He's a skill guy.
Good. Yeah, good for him. That's awesome. And good and grateful for yourself to be able to play with him your last year at Hendricken.
Mhm.
But from that junior year, like you said, like one of your favorite memories, winning that championship, that following winter in December of 2019, you signed your letter of intent to play at Villanova. Was there any other schools that kind of had your interest and you were kind of like on the borderline, or were you like, nah, Villanova is like the school that I'm going to go to?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely like Villanova wasn't really on my radar from the beginning.
Mhm.
I definitely visited. I think the first school I visited was UConn, and I just saw like going from the high school to the college level, like the difference in like facilities and like within itself was just like eye opening, because UConn is a very nice like indoor and outdoor facility. And I think from there, like I wasn't really focusing on Villanova. Like they weren't really on my radar, and I was just trying to like get my name out there. And then after I met Coach Devine at Rutgers, and he invited me to one of their camps, I went and then I visited, and then all the other schools just it didn't matter, and I was like, this is the place I want to play for.
Yeah, and you got to finish out your senior year after that. But before like the pandemic started and everything, during like before we graduated, what was your mindset after that? Because did it affect like you kind of have second thoughts about after you signed your letter of intent, or was there like a decision where you were like, oh, I might choose this school now, or what was your headset or your mindset like during that pandemic time after senior year?
Yeah, I feel like during that time I was just like, nothing really wavered in that. Like I feel like I was just like, what kind of just affected me was when we were going to report. So we were supposed to report in like what we usually do now in like the middle of July, well, not the end of June, beginning of July, and that got pushed back because of COVID. And then we were going to go in August, and then that got pushed back again. And it was just like a whole lot of uncertainty. We'd have team meetings once a week with the head coach, and everyone was on Zoom. And he would just be telling us, like, I don't have any new information for you guys. No one really knows what's going on. And from there, we just ended up reporting with the rest of the students. So, like, looking back on, like, the younger kids now, like, they all come early and they get to know the whole team. So, like, my freshman year, it was kind of like, it was different because we came back with the regular students. We didn't get to spend as much time. We weren't allowed in the locker room because of restrictions. I think we definitely like missed out on a good amount of things, but there was no like wavering and if I want to go to a different school because this is the school I wanted to, and like that the COVID didn't change that.
Yeah, so you guys didn't have like a season at all. You guys didn't play any games that year.
We did have a spring season.
Right. Okay.
So the fall we kind of took off because we weren't allowed, and we did like workouts, a lot of like lifting. But it was like everyone's at their own rack. We had the mask on. We were only outside on the field, like, I don't know, like maybe 10 times. So then, like, once things started to like relax down in the spring, we were like, we're going to try to have a spring season. And we ended up having, I think it was 6 games or 5 games. It was like 4 years ago. I'm trying to remember. But it was a good experience. I mean, there was no one in the stands because of like restrictions and everything. But it was like we played I got to play in my first game. So that was definitely getting my feet wet was good. So
Yeah,
even though it was a spring season, it didn't count towards anything. But it definitely offered me like an opportunity to just see how fast the game was at the college level.
Yeah, so you said you played about like 5 or 6 games, and you played in 2, right? Or
I think I played in 3 of them.
okay, was 2 of them was one of them was Rhode Island, right?
I did play with. I think I had like 11 plays.
Yeah,
you always remember the first times you get to play. I think the first game I had like 3 plays in.
right.
So it wasn't anything like crazy, but it was just like, all right, let's get the freshman's feet wet.
Right. Yeah, we'll get into those questions as well. But the question that Nick and Tom they wanted me to ask you, and I'm curious as well because, like we said, you played a guard in high school, and then now you transitioned over to the center on the line now. So when did that part of your game kind of like transition? Like, how did you transition into a center, and just like what was the mindset like going into it, and who told you to predominantly change to that position?
Yeah, so I think the last couple games of senior year of high school, the online coach, Coach Devine Villanova, told me that they were leaning towards me being a center. So then I played a few games. They just threw me in there for a couple downs at center. So like that was like the beginning of it, which was it was all like I was still new with it. Like I was still trying to like figure out how to snap the ball and block at the same time, which is always the hardest part of being a center. And then going from that to like the college level, I started out as guard because he wanted to like not overwhelm me. Put me at one position, right guard, and then later on, I started playing center more and more. My first games, I played guard in because he didn't think I was ready to play center, because coming to the college level, playing center is basically leading the O-line, reading the defense, calling the blocking schemes. If you can't do that, or if you mess that up, the whole line is off track, and then that affects how well you pass the ball and how well you run the ball. So I think it was definitely a lot to like make that adjustment, just from going from playing guard, I think the majority of my career, and back to and playing center. But overall now, I think I'm used to it. I played guard and center interchangeably, and I can snap step, so it's not really a big problem anymore. It's just the mental piece now is just playing new opponents, and it's like preparing on film what they're going to show, what blitzes they're going to run, and what's the best call.
Yeah, and along kind of the same lines as earlier, talking about like high school coaches and trainers and stuff. So far throughout your collegiate career, who have been some of the guys that have helped shape you into the player that you are now? And again, like with that role change, like just talk about some guys that have really helped you, like just progress your game.
Yeah, I think I touched upon Kevin and Joe back from Rhode Island, who really helped me get my body and like just from a physical standpoint to the next level, from allowing me to get from that scrawny 250 to 285 and having coaches see the potential. And just coming to Villanova, I definitely want to thank like the line coach Devon for developing me into the player I am, as well as the strength staff and even the training room for keeping me healthy after all these years.
Yeah, and going back to what we were talking about too, like your first taste of college football, you redshirted after the COVID year, right?
Yeah, so my freshman year with the COVID year didn't even count towards eligibility.
Yep.
And then I redshirted my sophomore year.
Okay, so yeah, then after that was when you really got, your first kind of taste, when you said the spring ball, about 5 or 6 games you guys played against Rhode Island. Again, just really like what was that first taste like? Just elaborating a little bit on that, like we were talking about earlier, like just getting your first minutes in your first college game.
Yeah, it was definitely like eye-opening, I would say, because we'd call the play. What was different is we're kind of a no-huddle offense. So just like getting a call from like your stance on the line and going straight from play to play was definitely different from what I was used to in high school. I would huddle and then run up to the line. So like that was different. And just like the pace of the game was different. Like it's the same fundamentals, but everyone is just bigger, faster, and stronger. And it just happens at a faster pace. So I think I was more worried about my assignment, which kind of slowed down my blocking. And then the more games I played in, which is to be expected as a freshman, you just try not to mess up. And I feel like I definitely moved past that sophomore year.
Yeah, and kind of like along the same kinds of lines, like you played Rhode Island a few years back and more than one time, but just your first time playing Rhode Island, playing your home state, what was that feeling like? And obviously it was during COVID, so there was no fans, but just describe that feeling, being able to play Rhody for the first time.
Yeah, it was definitely like I was like, that's my home state, like that's where I'm from. And there's one thing that really did stuck out to me after like all these years, was just like I really only knew a handful of guys on the team. Like I just remember, like I was just looking at the whole team, and I'm like, wow, like I really don't know like anyone on like the offensive line starting right now. I don't know the quarterback. Besides the coaches who I was like recruiting with, like I knew them. We said hi. I said hi to Flanagan after the game. Shook his hand because he was a Hendricken guy. Helped me through my recruiting process with URI. But I think there's just like kind of thinking like I was like I don't really know like half this team, and I'm like that's kind of funny because like people from Rhode Island always say like everyone. So I always thought that's just one thing that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, and kind of along the same lines as that too. Like first few times being on the field, what was your welcome to college moment? The first time you realized like, all right, this is the big leagues. This isn't high school anymore. Like you said, the the pace of the game has changed. Like, just welcome to college moment. What was that like for you?
I think the welcome to college moment was I ran on the field. I think I was a sophomore, and I remember one of the D linemen was like, "Oh, here comes the freshman,"
Mm,
and I just chuckled to myself. I'm like, "All right, like, and
yeah. Oh, from the
I
other
ended up,
team.
yeah, the other team. The guy was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, here comes the freshman," and I kind of just laughed to myself. And then I ended up, I blocked the guy, and I was like, "All right, so what are you gonna say now?" Like,
Yeah.
but it was always like that. I think that was like kind of more of a funny moment of like a welcome to college.
Yeah. And like, again, the following season, again, like I emphasize Rhode Island a lot because that's where we're from. So
Yeah,
just looking at some of those numbers, I mean, the season after that, you guys put up season high records of 297 rushing yards and 511 total offensive yards. So I mean, like, just is there a different mindset going into the games against Rhode Island because that's where you're from, or is it kind of just all right? It's another game, another team we have to beat, like type mentality. Like, what is that like for you going into playing Rhodey?
yeah. I feel like it's definitely just it's another game. It's another
Mm.
chance to do your job, get better, and that's all it is. And then after the game, then it's like, like I'll see the guys. I know more guys on the team now from high school days. So like after the game, it's definitely like catch up, say what's going on. But before that, the mentality is just it's a game. Can't be friends with anyone until after the game's over.
Yeah, and being able to play in more games, year after year. Played in about like 7 out of the 12 last year. Just again, like the role that you have now, like how have you just seen yourself progress, one as a football player, two as a student, just over these past few years and coming into this new season now?
I feel like I've definitely progressed more mentally. I feel like I was more hesitant as center because I wasn't as sure with everything going on. And then I would say now I'm sure in what I'm going to call, and just going from there, kind of leading by example from that front. Because if you're trying to tell everyone what to do and you're not really sure, it's not really like the best outcome. They're like, oh, like here comes the center that doesn't really know what's going on. But now I feel like I know what I'm going. I know what's going on. I know what I'm doing. The guys trust me that I'm going to do my job to give them the best chance we have to win.
So you feel like more so like you're one of like the team leaders in a sense at the center position now.
Yeah, within the O line, I feel like I definitely am.
Great. And looking back at it too, what has been one of the toughest matchups throughout your career so far at the college level?
I feel like a lot of the games are tough. It's one thing looking back on the high school level is the length of the game. Like there's been games when we've had over 90 snaps, and it's a long game, especially when it's hot outside. Like just staying assignment and physically correct the entire time, it's definitely a challenge. And I feel like just going from that to where it was just Hendricken football, where we would just drive down the field and score a touchdown and snap of the finger, where it's you got to fight for every yard in college.
Yeah, and what's been your favorite part of playing at the college level so far, or like something similar to high school, like your favorite high school moment? What's been like your favorite moment so far at the college level, or your most memorable?
My favorite moment, I was on the sidelines, but probably beating JMU because we've been playing the program as JMU has been playing JMU since I don't know how many years, and we seem to never beat them. And then being on the team that watched them not get that first down to end up having them lose the game was definitely like a jaw-dropping moment. Everyone was jumping up and down on the sidelines. We were going crazy, and ultimately that's what helped us get the CAA championship.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of everything I got lined up for you, Jake. I mean, I usually do like a little quick speed round before we end things off. So I got like 3 or 4 like quick questions to ask. So first one I got for you is your favorite football player and why?
That's a there's a good amount. I mean, they're all Patriots guys
Mm,
because from Rhode Island. I definitely admire Tom Brady's like grit, I would say. just for being, I know he just retired, but to be playing football that long and to still be performing at that high level, it's amazing. Because like there's one thing, like if you're not a football player, sometimes it's hard to like grasp how much of a toll it takes on your body. And just for him to still be performing at that high of a level after all these years is just incredible.
For sure. And next question, if you could play in any stadium in the world, where would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'd want to play at probably Lincoln Financial, just because I've seen it from a distance. The Eagles have grown on me here. Unfortunately, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but because like the Patriots weren't doing too hot. So like after 4 years down in Philly, the Birds have grown on me. So I think I want to give that a shot over there.
Gotcha. And what has been one of the coolest stadiums you played in so far throughout like your entire career?
I think the coolest might have been Penn State my junior year. Just like hearing the crowd, all the fans at the fully packed stadium. I think they fit a lot of people into that stadium. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it was a crazy amount of people, and it was loud. And I think that was like the best like crowd atmosphere that we played in.
Yeah, and lastly, to wrap up, if you weren't playing football, where do you think your profession would take you? What would you be doing if you weren't playing football, and why?
If I wasn't playing football, I don't think I'd be at Villanova. I feel like the big thing that brought me here was football, and without it, I wouldn't be on my radar. And I think I probably would have stayed closer to home, maybe somewhere in Massachusetts or state of Rhode Island. And I think I would have just been, I don't know. It's kind of a tough question because it's like that's such a integral part of like who I am since I was 5.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like for me, like someone going into broadcasting and stuff like that, if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be hosting a podcast. I wouldn't be probably going to URI. I really don't know what I'd do because for all of us, sports has been such a huge part of our lives and it's really shaped us, like you said, into who we are and what we do. So, but that concludes this episode, Jake. You can cross being on a podcast off your bucket list. First podcast in the history of Jake Picard's collegiate career. So, like I said, I appreciate you for joining me, Jake. What'd you think of the podcast and who might you want to see as a guest in the future?
I think you should definitely bully X into getting on here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm trying. Definitely want to get him on.
Get the vibe of what it's like to win 2 national championships.
For sure, man. And this episode will probably be out, I'm thinking next week. But I'll keep you updated on all that stuff and when it drops. And for all you guys watching, support Jake for this next upcoming season, the 2023 season for the Villanova Wildcats. Like, comment, subscribe, keep running up Cam's Corner. We'll see you guys in the next episode.